Sometimes you see an ending in a video game that makes you think, no way is that the original ending. This is why today we're diving into endings in video games that were never meant to be found. Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is the hit third installment in the popular RPG franchise, being named Game of the Year of 2023 by countless critics, and being hugely acclaimed by millions of players. However, that may have been different if they saw this cut ending data mined from the game. The game itself is marketed by the developers as having 17,000 variations of endings to unlock across its storylines for its 7 playable characters. In addition to those 17,000 endings, another ending was found in the data of the game for the character the Dark Urge, a character with amnesia whose father is Baal, the god of murder. Something tells me this can't be good. In the game is cut dialogue for an ending that would have happened during the epilogue if players beat the game as the Dark Urge, chose to embrace Baal, but didn't choose to become his successor, as these choices really pissed your father off. In the final game, a cutscene plays that reveals your plans are going to fail, but in the removed version, the Dark Urge would have woken up in a cesspool after a mating session with a gnoll, a hyena-like monster in the game.
As you awaken, your naked form aches with the exertions of coupling, as effusions mingle with the cesspool around you.
As apparently Baal would have wiped out the Dark Urge's mind and replaced it with the desire to find as many animals as possible to mate with in order to breed an army for father.
The urge has congealed in your mind and made of you a beast.
And apparently your mission is to seek out only the most grotesque of creatures.
What delights will you plumb next? Displacer beasts? Wargs, carrion crawlers. Thus you shall spend the rest of your days rutting.
These cut dialogue lines were actually recorded by the Baldur's Gate narrator, although no cutscene for this unused ending has ever been found. From the sounds of things, let's hope it stays that way. Halo Infinite. Released at the end of 2021, Halo Infinite was a welcome current generation return to the iconic series, which begins with Master Chief sleeping in space for 6 months after being thrown from a hangar bay in a previous battle. The Chief's peaceful slumber is unfortunately rudely awakened by a random pilot, and as soon as he boards his craft, Chief seems guilty about taking time off work and immediately demands to be taken to Zeta Halo so he can continue a fight against the pirate confederation known as Spanish. Interestingly, a mysterious deleted mid-credits ending was recovered in the data by hacker and contributor to the channel GameCheat13, which reveals the game would have originally ended just as it began, as once again the Chief is interrupted by the pilot, presumably after trying to get some more shut-eye. In the recovered ending, there's not much to go on, as the scene is extremely vague and rather abrupt.
I'm not going to believe this.
As essentially all that happens is the pilot receives a signal of some kind, just as he did when he found Master Chief at the beginning, and calls Chief over in excitement. Chief and the pilot look at whatever the hell they're seeing, and the scene closes. It's unclear what they're looking at or why this was removed from the game, although there are a number of theories, with some believing it could mark the return of one of the other major characters from the series. Don't tell me it's the Arbiter, the guy we have to play as when all we want to do is be the Chief. Didn't we get enough of him in Halo 2? It Takes Two. Thanks to Greg065 for submitting this discovery through Oddheader.com. It Takes Two is a co-op platformer released in 2021, where players take on the role of a married couple getting divorced who must work together to make it back to their daughter after they've been shrunken into dolls. Guided by the therapist book Dr. Hakim, the game plays out pretty much as you expect, with the couple Cody and May working out their differences along the adventure so they can stop their daughter Rose from running away. However, data miners made a discovery in the game that shows Cody and May were originally going to end up quite literally together, as by activating and opening the developer menu in the game, players found a playable cut ending level that takes place in the basement of the house. In the cut level, Dr. Hakim sends Cody and May through what looks like a Tunnel of Love carnival ride, which reveals itself to actually be a torture device that looks like it's about to tear them to pieces. Well, that's an unexpectedly dark turn. The end. Just kidding. Exiting the ride, Cody and May find they've been fused together into a heart, which both players must attempt to control at the same time, and follow Rose through a nightmarish-looking level while creepy, ominous music plays. Well, this definitely would have been a change of pace. The nightmare involves watching their arguments while their house is on fire, until they're transported to this abyss area with a giant spider creature, who nearly kills them before they wake up in a void, where they expose Dr. Hakim as a fraud and kick his ass down a staircase. While Cody and May eventually wake up in their real bodies and the rest of the ending is largely the same, many players feel the tonal whiplash from this deleted scene would have ruined the entire game. Aside from the awkward controls once both players are combined, revealing Dr. Hakim as a fraud who didn't know what he was doing the whole time is a twist that doesn't add anything to the game except make the adventure feel pointless. And instead of Cody and May resolving anything amicably before awakening in their bodies, they sort of just whoop Dr. Hakim's ass instead. Considering all the time wasted though, I guess he does deserve it. Mega Man Soccer. Thanks to Bob Billans for submitting this discovery through Oddheader.com. Mega Man Soccer released in 1994 for Super Nintendo, which starts off pretty chill until So much for that. The explosion was caused by the villain Dr. Wily and his robot masters, and now Mega Man has to defeat Dr. Wily in the only appropriate response to such an act of terror, by challenging him to a series of soccer matches. Strangely, Dr. Wily's fate never really comes to a satisfying conclusion, as the game barely even has an ending, other than the camera panning away when Wily Castle starts to explode at the end. However, players access what appeared to be the original ending of the game using a Pro Action Replay, a third-party cheat device that could alter the code in your games. We see that at the end of Championship mode, Mega Man was supposed to have a battle with Dr. Wily, taking place in the exploding castle, and it's literally going down as Dr. Wily gets his ass out of there, while Mega Man sort of just sits there. The next scene cuts to a sad-looking Proto-Man standing on a cliff overlooking the sea, who appears to be reminiscing about Mega Man. Wait a second, Mega Man just died? Wonder if things would have ended differently if he didn't decide to just sit there. Players also found a different ending for the tournament mode in the data, where we see Mega Man celebrating and the message "You are the champ" fly across the screen, before the game cuts to the same sad scene from before. How'd he die this time? Some believe the endings were rushed or unfinished, although that doesn't explain why they appear to have been removed at the very last minute, or why it shows in the data that Dr. Wily was originally going to be unlocked as a playable character after being in the game, explaining why he appears on the character select screen even though you can never actually select him. Truly though, cutting these endings were probably the right decision, as the last game I think anyone would have expected Mega Man to be killed off in would have been Mega Man Soccer. Aperture Hand Lab. Thanks to Dragon for submitting this mystery on the Oddheader Discord. Aperture Hand Lab is a VR demo set in the Portal universe released in 2019 by Valve and developer Cloudhead Games. The demo is meant to show off the hand and finger tracking technology that Valve developed for its Index VR headset, as players are instructed to perform a series of tasks with their hands by sassy smack-talking personality cores. However, things take an unexpected turn when players are instructed to utilize the Index's controller pressure, which causes you to accidentally break off the core's arm by shaking hands too hard, causing the machine to malfunction and fall to the bottom of a pit. After the fall, the personality core somehow manages to find a gun,
that was merely a demonstration,
which they use to hold the player hostage and force them to find the key they need to set them free. This is a little dark for a tech demo. However, what's even more dark is a strange discovery found in the data of the game, as Dragon on my Discord server found whatever the hell this is supposed to be when data mining the game. Well, now that's an odd ending. Although a much stranger ending that was originally planned for the game appears to give us some insight, as in 2021, Cloudhead Games uploaded an unfinished ending for the demo that doesn't appear in the final game, which depicts a simulation of human nutrition, as players take on the role of a robot tasked with shooting various fusion drinks into this giant model of a human head. Thankfully, we don't have to look at this odd head for long, as once it receives milk it turns into a rocket and blasts off. No clue what that was all about. After this video of this missing ending was released, Cloudhead Games CEO Danny Unger said on Twitter, "Now that we've revealed the secret alternate ending of Aperture Hand Lab, the trash in the basement of failed experiments might make more sense. There are other experiments gone wrong down there too." After seeing this, I'm not sure if I want to see any more failed experiments. Raimais. Thanks to therealhatsunemiku for submitting this discovery on the Oddheader Reddit. Raimais is an arcade game released in Japan in 1988, in which the player character Rika must race her holographic car through virtual mazes to save her brother Makoto from Mr. Mole. While at the time the game got lost in a sea of dot-eater mazes cloning Pac-Man, it's been since praised by retro game fans as Raimais pushed the genre forward with fully voiced cutscenes, boss fights, and multiple endings. The game's normal endings differ on whether you unlock the light mirror earlier in the game, which most players probably miss because it's a small item and therefore got the bad ending. In the bad ending, during a showdown with Mr. Mole, Makoto pops out just in time to stop him from killing you with his laser, only to get himself killed. Whoops. However, players who collected the random light mirror can use it to reflect the laser and kill Mr. Mole, rescuing Makoto. In 2017, players discovered another ending that manages to be even worse, 29 years after the game's release. In the data, Raimais Fan Zero Chan with Mark J uncovered character sprites and voice lines they didn't recognize being used in the final game, but hinted at a much darker ending. Asking their friend Sunny Dez to do some further digging revealed code for an entirely new ending. In the ending, Rika approaches Mr. Mole only to see him rip off a disguise, shockingly revealing him to have been her brother the whole time. Wait, so does he still need to be saved, or can we just go now? Worst brother ever. This ending appears to have gone undiscovered for 29 years because the conditions that triggered it appear to be impossible to achieve, seeing as you have to get through only 16 screens to see it, and no one's ever gotten less than 18. Meaning either the developers made a mistake coding this ending, or they figured it was so terrible they made sure no one would ever see it. Seriously, you have to kill your brother you were trying to save the whole time? Talk about a horrible ending. God of War. Ragnarok. God of War Ragnarok released at the end of 2022, winning Game of the Year at the Game Awards and continuing Kratos' and Atreus' Scandinavian saga. In the game, the father and son must get their allies to bring about Ragnarok, a prophesized war between the gods. For this to occur, Kratos and Atreus must bring together Surtur, a fire giant, and Surtur's lover, the ice giant Samara, in order to form Ragnarok as prophesized. When the players reach Surtur, he's keeping his distance from Samara as he believes becoming Ragnarok will kill him and his love, but reveals they've swapped hearts to still feel like they're together. Instead of getting to see Samara, Surtur comes up with a roundabout idea to heat up Kratos' blade so they emulate the heat of his own heart, and then shove them into her heart in his chest so he can become Ragnarok without her. Kratos and Atreus think this idea is pretty sus, considering what's actually prophesized, but to their and many players' surprise, the plan actually works, and the blades turn him into Ragnarok without any issue. However, modder Omega Fantasy uncovered cut dialogue in the files that reveals this wasn't always going to be the case, as in this scene, when Surtur falls off this cliff and becomes Ragnarok, he was originally just going to die, and then Kratos and Atreus were going to have to find Samara and get her to combine with his remains, showing that Surtur's idea was actually pretty stupid all along. In fact, some of the recovered subtitles for Atreus' dialogue were going to point out just how stupid this plan was, but this dialogue was cut because it was evidently decided that the plan was going to work anyway. It was also discovered there was a model for Samara in the files, and in the cut quest they would have lied to her about accidentally killing Surtur before she sacrifices herself over the same cliff to become Ragnarok, which would have definitely made more sense than what happened in the game. Additionally, there was a cut questline found that would have taken place after the credits, where after Ragnarok takes down Asgard, you would have found both Samara and Surtur's hearts, and then leave them in a location where other characters ask if that's a smart idea, and Kratos basically says, if it's not, f it. Whether this was supposed to be a hint to something in the future is unknown, especially now considering it was removed from the game and there was no mention of this in the Valhalla DLC, so I guess at this point it's nothing to worry about for now, I think. Y2K, a postmodern RPG. Thanks to chatter, Mr.E, and Reagan Hall for submitting this mystery through Oddheader.com. Y2K, a postmodern RPG, is one of the weirdest and most controversial games in recent memory. Released in 2019, Y2K is an Earthbound-inspired adventure that explores what would happen if the world had to be saved by a self-centered loser, which was poorly received for having players play as such an unlikable character, as well as its poor handling of sensitive and real-life issues, an overcomplicated and confusing story, and extremely off-putting and awkward dialogue.
Now that I reflected on it, facial hair was not exclusive to male animals or male humans for that matter. Clearly, this was a woman projecting a rather strong personality onto this cat.
Despite the controversies, or maybe because of them, the game is actually quite fascinating, though a supposed secret surrounding Y2K is perhaps more fascinating and controversial than anything else in the game, as the game has multiple unfound endings that have been confirmed to exist but have never been solved. The first ending found appears to have been removed, which was uncovered from the date of the game, and actually seems satisfying compared to the one players experienced in the final game, which led players to believe it was the game's original ending, but was changed to be more cynical in the final version. However, the developers revealed there's a legitimate way of achieving this ending that's never been solved, which maybe if it was easier to find, might have gave the game better reception. The second ending is far more controversial, as developer Andrew Allison mentioned in the game's Discord that there's yet another ending that's never been found. No full confirmation of this ending has ever been found in the game, although evidence points to it involving an NPC named Chad in a random lighthouse out of bounds in the game. Most mysteriously is that a video was uploaded to a Spanish YouTube channel shortly around the game's release that appeared to demonstrate this secret ending without revealing how to actually activate it. The video was removed from YouTube shortly after, but was re-uploaded to another channel for archival purposes. In the YouTube video, the player enters the lighthouse, which other players have never been known to do, where this happens, and then unveils yet another ending that appears more satisfying than the ones found in the official game. It's debated whether this is an actual unfound ending or part of a larger hoax. The last piece to this mystery, however, is one that certainly takes it in a contentious direction, as podcaster Dick Masterson revealed that he's the hidden NPC named Chad, which the developers seem to confirm with this image on Twitter. Masterson being the guy who wrote the book Men Are Better Than Women, and notoriously argued the same thing on Dr. Phil, and evidently he's supposed to red pill you in the game to help you achieve the ending. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna stick to the bad ending. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and if you know of any other endings in video games that weren't meant to be found, submit through oddheader.com, come join the Discord, or even send me a shout through Reddit or X. Shout out to Angel the Fox, Ash Photography, BitWiff27, Black EV50, Chad Biscuits, Eddie Talkspin the Bleach Primid, Flex, Kieran Bolton, The Meatly, Phoenix157, Rackman22, Riley S, Robert Eisenman, Rolkot Mifua, Select, Starcore2, Taryn Stock, and Towerizer for their Patreon support. Stay tuned.